Hi there, we're live. While people are coming and people are joining, I just want to welcome you today. Hey, everyone, well, joining you here. I want to welcome you to this call today. I didn't want to call it a webinar because I want to simply talk to people. So, hi, everyone who's joining at this point. This is not a webinar, this is a live call. What this means is I will be talking with JJ Reynolds, a visualization expert, and we will talk about marketing dashboards. That's such a fun an interesting topic. It is, right? Okay, for some people it is. Today we'll be talking about how he builds dashboards, how I think I should build dashboards, and so on. So before we get started, I want to ask you some questions before we start with JJ and before I do an intro for JJ. I want to know and I want you to give your comments on LinkedIn or on YouTube. What is the most challenging part of building a marketing dashboard for you? Or a presentation or whatever? Or why are you coming to this call as well? I want to know those challenges. Also, if you participate, you will get two things. Of course, we give Power Metrics for free for some users. And also, if you think that what we say is interesting, you can have a call with me and I can help you with your dashboard or also review your marketing dashboard for your client presentations or for your management presentations. That's the first thing. And with this, remember, if you want to tag or mention us JJ Reynolds, he will be in this call, so you can also follow him, and you can also follow us on LinkedIn and YouTube. That's the only channels we use. And here, if you have questions, remember to comment on YouTube, and we will be happy to answer. With this, we are going super fast. I want to make an intro for JJ. So I want to start with JJ here. Thank you very much for being in this call, and welcome. Can you listen to me, by the way?
Oh, there we go. Hello, hello. Thanks so much, Juan. This is gonna be a blast. It's gonna be super, hopefully, super helpful to get everybody saving time and also creating things that people use, which is always super validating.
That's great. I'm really glad you're here, and I really want to make this as a conversation. I know that you have some slides, but as I told you before, I would like actually to debate to say, hey, I don't agree with you. I will do it in this other way. So really, thank you for being here. Actually, I won't be looking at the participation of the call. To me, this is a free consultancy here with you because I know that your hourly rate is high. So I will take a lot of time to make questions for you directly. But so far, really thank you for being here. It is, I think, the second or the third time you're here, so really appreciate it.
Great. Yeah. It's going to be, I'm going to hop into things. We're going to go quick and also hopefully people can rewatch the recording. And because I'm going to put a lot of information on how to think about it. And then you can, like, everybody here can take their specific spin on it. Like, it's not a template giveaway. This is how to think about it. And now you can go execute it with your background knowledge. And yeah, it'll be a blast. So.
No, thank you. Remember, everyone, if you don't have time to watch this today, remember that we have a recording. Actually, the last time that we made a webinar together, it went very well, and thousands of people went to it. You were presenting about B2B measurement, conversion measurement, and I really loved it because you showed me something that I didn't know it was possible. So I really, I really like those things. I really want to know. I really want to every day to know something I didn't know about, and I think that you are exactly the right person for that. But without this, we really like to start with you. I would really like to start about talking about how you think about dashboards. So it is your
Awesome.
presentation, and thank you.
Let me just share my screen and we will get into this. I promise this won't be the awkward beginnings here, everybody. Do not worry. All right. Um, I think my screen is shared. So if you guys can see my screen, put I can see your screen in the comments because I would like to know that you guys are having a blast here as well. So, okay, I can see that we have this. Minimum viable dashboard. This is our goal here, folks, is that you want to create the least amount of information on a page. And so what that means is that we also know this as remove everything except the action, right? So just try to contextualize that, removing everything except the action, also known as make it simple to see what to do. Like that's the purpose of a dashboard. Also known as save you a lot of time and not overbuilding while still having some usefulness behind it, right? That's the goal here. And then the biggest thing is that we want to use a framework instead of templates. I know everyone loves a good template, everyone loves to copy and paste, but I would suggest to you to use this framework and set aside an hour to 2 hours and build your dashboard, because it will make it so much more actionable for the context that you have. So put "I'm ready" in the comments. Estoy listo if you're from Spanish speaking. My Spanish is not the best, but here we go. And so here's a couple fun facts about me while you guys put "I'm ready" in the comments. Okay, so I live in Reno, Nevada in the US. If you're not familiar where that is, it's the state right next to California and the top of Nevada there. So if you look at top of California, head east, that's where Nevada is. Volleyball's my sport. So if you guys want to play volleyball, and you're in Reno, let me know. I'm the founder and managing director over at Vision Labs. So if you guys want anything, if you're looking to have this done for you, Vision Labs is where it's at. We are a measurement department. So what that means is that we work with companies to manage all of their measurement, marketing integrations, all of that jazz. And we work with clients ranging from honestly 1 million is or 1 to 2 million is kind of our smallest clients, up to 250 million, where we have some pretty large clients and even some beyond that. And so we have a wide range of experience, and we actually work across most all industries. So we work with B2B, B2C, SaaS, direct response, e-com, content marketing, you name it, we probably have done it. So if you have questions about your specific niche, I will be happy to give my 2 cents on those. We work mostly in the Google stack, so that's Tag Manager, GA4, BigQuery, Looker Studio, etc. All those Google things. They add more tools by the minute. I'm also a trainer in the lab, which is our education side of things, where we show people how to become better marketing analysts, become and build better dashboards through data collection and everything else. And if you wanted to join that, since you are here, this is I will spend less than 30 seconds on this. If you want to join the lab, you can use Porter, $100 off. It expires March 1st. Or if you're like, hey, I want this done for you, submit a contact form, guys, hop in. Figure I'll put that up front just because I'm not going to, there's no thrill of the shill here. I'm just going to put it out there. Okay. So why does your dashboard end up like this? Right? Like you end up with a dashboard that's cluttered, complicated, and you're not super jazzed about. And what usually ends up happening is that it's not pretty. There's no action. No one knows what to do if you're working with other people. And everyone just asks me or you, right? They're just like, hey, well, how many leads did we get last week? And you're like, look at the dashboard, look at the dashboard. And then you're just checking boxes, right? You're just like, there's a dashboard for marketing. There's a dashboard for Facebook ads. So you're just marking the boxes, and there's too much data. And that is the big problem. So this is what has happened in the marketplace from my perspective, is that the complexity is over here and time is at the bottom. And over time, the ease of creating dashboards has decreased, meaning Looker Studio is free. It is very powerful. Like we've worked with enterprise multi-billion-dollar companies that use Looker Studio, and it is becoming easier and easier for anybody to get started. At the same time, the volume of data is increasing, right? So I'm sure everyone's noticed that, is that you have more and more data just coming into the day, and you're like, holy cow, we now have analytics, we now have ads, we have our CRM, we have all these things that we're trying to put in one spot, and it's just getting complex. And so this complexity and readability is just going off the charts, right? It's becoming more and more complex over time. That's not good. And so our goal, right, if you're designing a dashboard, if you're building dashboards, is to take this red line that is readability, erase that, and put it so that the complexity decreases. And that's very hard to do. And so we're going to try and do that and combat that as much as we possibly can. And so I'm going to give you a lot of examples. They'll all be in Looker Studio, but you can apply this to any dashboard design tool you would like. This is also how we built this. So if you go to visionlabs.com/demo, you will get a dashboard that is our real data. It is our Vision Labs data that shows you how many sessions, how many leads. It gives you breakdowns. And to the normal person, you're like, this is really cool. I want this. That's what you're going to say to yourself. But if you don't know what to do with it, it is useless to you. So do not just go copy this. use this framework instead. I will run through this dashboard at the end because everyone likes that. And I will show you kind of how we use this internally to make decisions. I look at this every single week. And so here is how we built that. And this is the minimum viable dashboard framework. And we are going to dive into this. And this is 8 steps that I'm going to run through. Some of them quicker than others. Some of them are more important than the other. But the first thing is decide what is important. Then you get your data fast. Don't get bogged down by using really complex tools. Ask your buy questions. This is very important. Me and Juan have had a couple conversations on this already. Granularity that you need, hypothetical outcome-based actions, find the gap, simplify visual clutter, and go back to step 1. That is what you need to do. If you want to screenshot that, we're going to hop into each of those steps right now. So what is important? So right now, put in the chat one metric that you think is important. Like, just drop a chat. Like, what is the most important metric to the business that you're working on? Whether that's your business, whether that's like the company that you work for, put in a metric. What does that look like? This can be wild ranging, right? Like, you can talk about B2C. So like, if you're an e-commerce company, that's be very different than like an enterprise sales company. And you can have a very small, nimble, like low ticket offer versus a $2,000 offer. Okay. So I want you to envision in your case, this metric, whatever metric that you think, I want you to use that. I'm going to use us. So visionlabs.com. I'm going to use our example. So here's what I think is one of our most important metrics. New contacts. Bam. Dashboard done. Ta-da, new contacts. Actually, I know you guys are like, oh, that's not the best. Don't worry, I made it bigger. Okay. So we have a date range at the top. We got new contacts. That is the most important metric. Okay. So ta-da, we've defined a metric. We can have multiple metrics. Do not worry. Like, oh no, we only have to look at one. But we're going to use new contacts as our kind of guiding light for this presentation. You can use whatever metric you want. Just apply that. So what is important? We have now crossed that off our list. We now have a metric that we have defined as important. I see in the chat we've got leads, a lot of leads, traffic and sign up. And so we have some of those types of questions, leads, signups, etc. So it sounds like we got some more B2B people here. Okay, so then we have to go to step 2, get data fast. And it sounds really dumb when I say it out loud, but people overthink this. And I have been guilty of overthinking this as well. Start simple. Go and to a platform where you get this information and export that data. If you use ActiveCampaign, go to ActiveCampaign, hit download, and upload that to Looker Studio. That will give you your starting point. It will take you less than 30 seconds to go do that. Just go, and like if you're using Facebook, go to Facebook, download that. That's not a long-term solution. Just go do it to understand where you're starting from. Then use a visual connector. Shameless plug for Porter, right? Metrics over here. But you can use a visual connector that connects directly to Looker Studio. That's a little bit more complicated, right? You have to integrate some things. You might as well refresh some tokens. Then maybe harder is going to use a table connector, something like Google Sheets or Excel. A little bit more complicated, but you can do some more manipulations, some more complicated things. And then harder is going to be a database where you have something like BigQuery, right? Where you kind of load all the data in, you transform that, etc. So you now have gotten this data. I'm going to give you like our shameless plug for our resources. Everyone wants to know this is go to visionlabs.com/resources. They're totally free. You can go there and just literally poke around, see all the different tools from AI to code lists to whatever else. They're all there. We try to keep that up to date. Okay, so now you've defined what is important. Like you can use multiple metrics. As you get more complex, like you will have more metrics. Okay, we're going to start with one because hot dog, you could build an entire series of dashboards on one metric. You're going to get the data fast. Go download it, right? Put it in Sheets. Start it out there. Then we're going to ask our buy questions. And everybody always asks me, what are you talking about, JJ, when you talk about buy questions? And we are going to hop into that because this is by far the most important thing that you need to understand. So your buy questions are when you want to break that down by something. Okay. So for example, you could say, I want new contracts, I want new contacts broken down by date. So now you've got a line graph, right? Maybe you want it broken down by week. Okay, so those are both time, right? So now you have a little line graph, you're good to go. But maybe you wanted to have it broken down by entry point. So did they download a lead magnet? Did they download a template? Did they download a cheat sheet? What did they download? Was it a pop-up? Was it a thing? There's all those different ways to do it. Did they have different pages that you opted into? Maybe you wanted it broken down by landing page, right? All of these things are different ways to break that singular metric down. And so the more that you add this in, the more buy questions that you add, the more you have a dashboard in front of you. We took one metric, right? We fragmented it out, and now we have time. We've got where they came from, how they entered, and all of those different types of things. Some people look at cost and also are like, whoa, cost per, that's complicated. And so now you could take this thing and you could say new contacts. And everyone has seen this before where you say, boom, now we have previous period and previous year. And so as a company, we now know we've generated 1,152 new contacts, excluding people who re-downloaded something. We now can compare this to the previous period, let's just say the previous week, and we can say to the previous year. All right. Then we could say, I wanted to have this broken down by day. There we go. So there's that number, right? We have the previous period and the previous year. We then have it broken down by day below. So the question is do we need this broken down by day? I don't think so. I'm like the founder over here. I'm operating this company, and I don't think we need it broken down by day. We probably could get by week. Bam, ta-da. Now we have by week. We might want to also see that versus the previous period just to make sure we're trending right. Oh, bam, there we go. And so now we have taken this one metric and we now have 1, 2, 3, 4. Like if you count every single thing on the page, we have 252. We have the percentage of the previous year. We now have the previous period. We now have every single week. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 8 data points from one metric. And mind you, we have not even broken this down by the entry point. Here's by entry point. So now we added in 1, 2, 3, 4, 8 more. We're at 16 total metrics now on the page. Do we need it by source as well? Oh, geez. Now we have by lead and by source. So now we're at like 30 different metrics for a single metric. Okay. So when I say break it down by something, ask yourself, what will you do with that breakdown? Do you need to know it's by YouTube? Do you need to know it's by Google? If you do, what will you do if it's not doing in the right direction, right? Like, what will you do? And I just saw Charity in the chat. I'm gonna hop into the chat real quick. Is how do you get entry point? And that's great, right? That's a question. It's like if you don't know how, right? We want to then go back to the drawing board and say, how do we do that? And the quick of it is that we use Google Analytics to then define like using that original source kind of entry point, those types of things, and also give you the what they actually opted into. Long story short, that's how we do that. There we go. Okay, so now we have your buy questions, and the next thing is the granularity. So this is something that once you start working with either if you're in a company and you have managers, or depending on the size of company that you're working with, it will depend on what you're looking at. How do we do that, right? So if you need it by time or by function. And so what this looks like is, do you need it by year, right? That might be sometimes you need something by year, maybe by half a year, by quarter, by month, by week, day, hour, minute, second. Those are going to be, do you need those granularities? Or is it broken down by function, right? Landing page, previous page, source, medium, opt-in, name, opt-in type, purchases, items, experiment. Do you need those? So those functions and those times are going to be broken down by who you talk to. And everyone looks at me like, oh, I need all of these, everything. I need them all. Where are they? That's not in the connector. That's not in this thing. That's not in ActiveCampaign. That's not in HubSpot. Like this is all defined differently, right? And so that's where you kind of have to layer in your strategy of how do you get that time or by function. And how you get that data, this is not necessarily how you get that. This is more along the lines of how do you understand how to visualize that. And so what the easiest way to look at that is looking at by the position. Administrative is usually months. usually the highest level of how did our blog convert people? How did the how many leads did we generate this month? What's the overall conversion rate of the site this month, right? Are we trending in the right direction this month? And so that is usually what we're looking at for administrative. Then we have managers, that's usually weeks, right? So you say, hey, the same metric, we need that by week, right? And then you have practitioners, which are if you're in the weeds, pushing the buttons, smashing the things, is you usually want it daily. And that's where people go wrong, is usually the practitioners are the ones building reports and they think everyone needs it by day. Because they need it by day, right? Because if you broke something yesterday and it went to zero, well, you won't know that, right? But you need it by day. And lastly, the most unsung heroes is we have developers. Those are usually hours. And then you trend them from there. So think of it like minutes, hours. If you're managing uptime for something, there you go. Here's an example for our administrative dashboard that I use. Okay. So we have contacts, we've got discovery calls, we've got sessions, we've got new customers for the lab. So if you go to like Looker Studio, or not Looker Studio, if you go to visionlabs.com/lab, there you go. And the thing is people think this is really easy, right? It's like not that complicated, right? But like, it's not complicated because it's so difficult to make it simple. And there's a famous quote, and I don't know who said this, so I'm going to say it's Albert Einstein. That's not who quoted this, but I would have made it simpler, but I didn't have enough time. Okay. And that's what the goal of this is that right here from this thing, we now have a hierarchical view. We have our kind of guiding metric of new contacts. We have our discovery calls. We have all these different things. We can then add in a line chart like we did before down below that trends any one of these metrics. And so now we can say, okay, we have this guiding thing, and I, as a marketer, know what to do if something is not right. So we now have the granularity required identified. Okay. And this is where the marketer in us is going to really start coming out. Okay. Is hypothetical outcome based actions. And so we want to take a goal, and what is the inverse of that goal? Okay. So let's just say you say, I need a metric. Let's just use our CPA, cost per acquisition. Okay. CPA by week. That's what we're looking at. Okay. Good job. What if our CPA is $30? What happens then? What do you do? If you don't know the answer to that question, it probably isn't a metric that you need. And you have to level up your experience to get that metric and to understand what to do with it. And you won't know how to visualize that until you understand that. Because you should be able to say, hey, if we have this CPA metric and it's above 50, we need to go talk to Susan in ads management and say, hey, we gotta focus on this because we are spending too much money to get a acquisition. On the inverse, what if it's $10? Should we be doubling our spend? Why not? Right. And that could be done for any metric. So this is what usually happens, right? And this is a little tongue in cheek here, is that you, as the developer, analyst, dashboard builder, you say, what do you want? And then they're like, I don't know. It's not that simple. I'm like, what do you want? And you just yell it again at them. And you're like, what do you want? And they're like, I don't know what you want. And you're like, what do you want? And then the marketer over here, it says, what am I supposed to do with this dashboard? Right? Like, you're like, what am I supposed to do with this? And then you say, what do you want? And then you say, what am I supposed to do? And you go back and forth on this good old like merry-go-round of what do you want? What am I supposed to do? And if you say, oopsies, I skipped the slide. If X happens, then Y. It solves all this. If our CPA is $20, we're going to spend more money. How much more money? Let's do it. If our new leads per day, our average new leads per day is less than 10, we're going to go investigate our conversion rate. We're going to go try and figure out our site. We're going to go do these things. But until that threshold's met, because our target is wrong, then you are able to act. Right? Action is the goal of a dashboard. Okay. So here's an example of something really simple. Again, I am trying to keep this as simple as possible. So you have a checkout. There's a pop-up for product X, right? You can, from that product X, you can either add to cart, go view the product, or close the pop-up. Then from that, if you view the product, you then add the cart again, and then you purchase. This is a real client scenario. This client doing $200 million plus a year. And the question is they were like, we need to know the answer to this question. We need to know this ASAP. Have to know the answer to this question. And I'm like, okay, what if 100% of people who view the pop-up go view the product page and then add to cart? So they take kind of scenario 2 in this line thing. What are you going to do differently than if it's 100% do number 1 of just add to cart and then buy? And there's no action. They have no idea what to do. They just wanted to know the answer. And I'm like, guys, calm down. Like, if you don't know what you're going to do with the answer to this question, the question is almost useless. Okay. And so this was a really big company, like very big. And they had no idea what to do. They're just like, oh, let's see. And I'm like, well, okay, cool. 50% of people added to cart, 30% of people viewed the product, and 20% closed it. That's what happened. Well, now no one knows what to do, right? Like I just solved the entire problem of a dashboard build for that. And so the more you can forecast, the more you can act. So if we take this same example and build it a little slightly different way, right? And so we viewed landing page X. They then go to submit a form. There's then a follow-up sequence. You then view the product. You then add to cart. You then purchase. You then view the upsell, all that jazz. Okay? Well, that is very easy to say, okay, what is each of these going to do? Is landing page X to submit a form, 40%. Follow-up 1, you're probably going to get 60% people open up follow-up 1, and you're probably going to have 30% of people open up follow-up 2, maybe 40% if you're a good email crafter. You then go to view the product, right? You view the product and you say, hey, okay, view the product. Let's just say people did that. And then you go to add to cart and purchase. So each of these steps you could forecast the numbers for. And then you say, if the people who viewed the landing page X and only 10% of them submit the form, we are going to go build that page better. If it's 40% of people, we're going to double down on traffic, and we might need a breakdown of by traffic source. And so right now I'm just speaking out loud, but I am building a dashboard in your head of what you would act upon, what action you would take based off of that outcome before you even see numbers. And so that is the hypothetical outcome-based action step. That's step number 5, okay? And so what you want to do then is you're going to find the gap. And again, the more you can forecast, the more you can act. And the more you can find the gap. And so what if you did like this, right? You now have 40% of people who go to submit the form, and 60% of people then view follow-up 1, and 30% of people view follow-up 2, and they will view the product, and then 10% add to cart, and 50% purchase, and then 5% take the upsell. So if you have this type of funnel, right? This is more like a kind of e-commerce style lead gen e-com, right? Of 10 makeup tips, download this PDF. Oh, hey, on the thank you page, awesome deal. If you're not talking to the screen right now and say, oh my goodness, this is amazing, or oh my goodness, what are they doing? This is a terrible forecast. Then you probably shouldn't build this dashboard, and you need to understand why this is happening, or have someone who understands why this is happening. Because if you can forecast this out, your dashboard will be utilized by everybody in the company. I guarantee it. You will have the ability to say, hey, we're not at 40%. Let's go. We need another breakdown of something else. And that is where the real utility behind a dashboard comes from. So you want to avoid this at all costs, right? You want to avoid the marketer or whoever's viewing the dashboard. Usually, I say marketer because we usually work with marketers, but right, dashboards used everywhere. Of what am I supposed to do? And you want to avoid this at all costs. So you could say, hey, go improve that. We expect it to be 80%. It's now 50%. Or we expect it to be 50%. Or you could say, hey, go fix this because, hey, it's supposed to be 80% go to step 1 and 50% go to step 2. If you don't have those numbers of forecasts, just start with a baseline and say, hey, we want to improve this. It makes it a lot easier. So you now have the least amount of information you could possibly have. And you might be saying, whoa, JJ, that's a lot of numbers you're throwing at us. And it is a lot of numbers, but it's the least amount of numbers as possible. I guarantee you, any dashboard that you have or any template on the internet, go count the amount of numbers that are on that template. Go count them. I guarantee you every single one's going to have like 30 to 50 to hundreds of numbers. And if you don't know what to do with them, it's almost useless, right? Like, yes, you can have trends. Yes, you can do different things. But in general, you can have a lot of numbers that basically lead you to nothing. So we have now found the gap, right? We know what to do. The last step here is the hardest step. And I'm going to say that this is the step that I fail at the most. Our team fails at the most. And this is the hardest step. But it is very important. And if you can do it well, you can get people to say ooh and ah about your dashboards. And you want to simplify visual clutter. What that means is you want to say, hey, as our knowledge increase, usually our dashboard sophistication increases, but we want to keep it as simple as possible. And if you want examples, guys, buckle up because I'm about to give you some more examples. Hold on. You want to ask a quick question?
Yeah, I was going to ask. I wanted to start a discussion first. I want to appreciate Albert Einstein for so many quotes about simplicity. Thank you very much. And also Lee Hoffman, who said who is actually Mark Twain. So I really appreciate the first thing. But I wanted to say we create templates at Porter, and they are a great marketing material. We get a lot of marketers. I can tell you I have never used one of those templates because I only see one metric. And I actually can tell you myself, I don't even see Google Analytics. I only see today things that I can control. And today we can control SEO. So we only see traffic at this point, or at least me. So to me, totally makes sense what you say. I think that people believe, hey, maybe sophisticated marketers, they have great dashboards with clusters, with predictive modeling. And you will see that the best marketers at this, they don't have dashboards. I mean, they have a simple time series or something like that. So I really love this because I see many dashboards every day, and I think many of them are so cluttered and so full of things.
My my favorite thing is we've had this happen a couple of times of where one client, a new client comes on with us, and they're like, we want to have something like this. Like another client, like they're like, this client definitely, like this other person, this other company, they don't know what we work with them. Is like they know what's happening, and they have like this really mixed model marketing, like reverse inverse attribution, double helograph, super crazy thing. And we're like the one they're like, we know that like they're looking at like 7 metrics, and like we have this like really complicated backend system to make it so simple. And so that has happened a couple of times where somebody comes in expecting that a different, like they're like, oh hey, we need to copy what they're doing, and I'm like, they're not like simple is better, like actionable is better.
So I love it. Actually, you will show some examples, and I will be also happy to share one of our examples of the things that I actually look at, so people
Yeah,
can see that all dashboards are very cluttered with many things.
no, exactly. And like people love to think it's really complicated, but the simpler the better. um awesome. Well, I'm just going to run through a couple of examples here, and then we can go to Q&A and share some more examples. Juan, does that work with you?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's see example.
Awesome. All right. So first off, the example that I've already shared, we got visionlabs.com/demo. All right. And we also have visionlabs.com/resources. So if you want to go to download some resources, and we have visionlabs.com/demos, which is also have each individual demos there. And so my template disclosure, and Juan already said this, is that most of the time, all the templates that I see on the internet, like nobody actually uses. We've had a couple of lab members who have bought templates and then have booked calls with me to like basically like simplify the template. And I was like, if we just started from the beginning, we would have not had this problem. And so templates are a great way to get started, but then oftentimes you need to kind of rebuild what action you want to take. So here's an example from our dashboard there. We've got sessions at the top, and then lead impressions, and then leads generated. We then have that, you go down, you have that broken down by the lead name, and we can dive into even the full funnel of that. And so over time, this evolves to be more complex, right? Um, and so that is something that you need to really understand is like over time, your complexity will evolve because at the top we have sessions and basically everything's broken down by sessions, right? Sessions who did X, sessions who did Y, sessions who did Z. And then you move down the page, we have it broken down by the source, we have it broken down by the outcomes of that source, and then you can click on any individual one to see it even further. Ignore last week we had a little error because we were migrating over another website. So even the best of us, the popper or the cobbler's kids have no shoes. We we definitely messed up our own analytics last week. So ignore that there. Um, and so then here we have this very simply broken down of saying here's how many people saw each of our lead magnets, how many people became aware of that, how many people engaged with that, people actually generated that, and then the conversion rate of each of those. And this only matters if you know what to do with it. Okay. And that's what, like, that's my disclosure here is if you say, for example, you spent $10,000 on this Facebook ads for agencies template that absolutely flopped. And we got 17 leads. Well, that's not going to turn out too well because we spent that much amount of money. So that context is always super helpful. Here's another example of 404 errors, right? Like that's something that people often overlook is the fact that you could say, hey, we've got 404 errors with the least amount of information possible. We've got every single page. We've got the trend of that thing if you click on it. And then you can see here by source. So for example, if you were looking at mixed analytics, they send us some traffic. We want to make sure that traffic is kept up to date. So each of these dashboards has a purpose, right? And we've identified the framework of saying, what is the least amount of information that I need to act? And you might say, that's a lot of information, JJ, but over time, you will evolve that. And you might know what to do with that number. But if you don't know what to do with it, it can become really complex. So just to recap here, folks, here's the MVD framework, right? You have all these different steps. Feel free to screenshot that once more. The biggest takeaway I would like to say is focus on what you need first and then add in your buy question so you can act on that. And the last thing here is that if you were interested at all, visionlabs.com/lab, all the deets are in there and you can get $100 off your first payment. And that expires on the 1st of March for anybody here in attendance or wants to take a little gander over there. And if you happen to have this and you want to manage it want it managed, head over to visionlabs.com and you can submit a contact form and we can talk through that. So let's chat Q&A. Juan, I'm ready to hear your thoughts.
Okay, the first thing I want to say is the equivalent of dumb scrolling in business is looking at dashboards because looking at data makes you feel smart, that you are busy. When you look at a cohort analysis, hey, I am so smart. But that's passive. I mean, you are never busy doing that. You are never productive. And it is very easy to fall into the trap to to see many dashboards that you won't use. This is a real story. I got frustrated every day when I was looking at our revenue, but I had so little control on our revenue because I needed to focus on things that I could control. That's why I said I don't look at conversions today. I look at traffic from SEO because that's the thing we are influencing today. And I totally agree with you. On the other hand, I will play as the devil advocate, which is agency reporting is very emotional, and non-technical people and clients they want to see images, and they want to see a dashboard full of stuff. So I think for client presentation, people like colors, but in the end, in the end, it is not productive at all. I mean, you don't do anything with that. Uh, that's the first thing. It was not a question; it was more more a comment. But today you asked something, and I want to know your opinion. You already showed us your metrics, but I want to ask you, what are the three top metrics that you will see for an e-commerce business, and why and how to make it actionable?
Yeah, so for e-commerce, I think there's kind of the three things that I would look at off the top of everything is that you need to look at your average order value. And I'm going to cheat and say you should also look at like the mean, median, and mode of the order values because the average doesn't exist. Which is something that's like it's more complex, right? I think that's a higher volume thing, but average order value with my buy question there is broken down by the mean, median, and mode of that AOV because your average doesn't exist, and so you might actually be skewing lower because somebody bought $1,000 of product from you, but that's not going to happen again, or not going to happen often. So that's my first metric is AOV. I will say that your I'd say like 90-day, 45-day lifetime value of new customers is going to be also super important, and then on-site conversion rate of how many people sessions that see an offer divided by the purchases of that offer. I think with those three metrics, you can do just about anything.
Really, I will argue. I will debate that. But first, I have someone asked this, and I will clarify it. So, Charity Betancourt asked earlier. JJ mentioned that visualizing importer data is harder than manual exports, but maybe you didn't mean that. So
No,
maybe
I meant like it's harder in the sense of like if you go into the sheet, like I'm talking about version 1A, right? If you go into Facebook and build a report and then hit download, and then you now have that, like that is faster than having to go sign up for any platform, not even Porter, like any platform at all, because you control 100%. There's no authentication, there's no new system to learn. You are just downloading what you see in front of you and then visualizing it, as opposed to like having to connect to any new platform, any new it's just going to cut down the time. And then once you kind of have that dashboard in front of you, Charity, like you could then go to like Porter or anywhere else and be like, hey, I just need these metrics. Like I know what I need. And then you can level up by what they have inside. Like you didn't even know that you could visualize the individual ad, right? Like those things will then have in Porter. So
right, and thank you for clarifying that. You're right. I also look at the Stripe for revenue data. I don't look at Google Looker Studio for that. I will argue with the average value, with the metric, and
yeah.
this is my point there. At Porter, as a founder, I have control over everything, like product, so I can manipulate the pricing. But a marketer doesn't have access to the pricing and to the positioning of the business, so I don't have control on the average order value. I have control over tactics. That's why I wouldn't say that that is a metric important for me, but I really like that point of view, anyways.
Yeah. Like I think that comes into play if you start running a lot of ads. Um, because if you're trying to make money on that, like just take Porter for example, is like you have the low ticket, the medium ticket, and like the like high ticket, right? It's like 17. I'm not like let's just say it's 10, 50, and 100. I'm just making up numbers because it's like simple. So like say any software company of 10, 50, and 100, you're gonna start seeing like your averages across the board. And then once you layer in like your buy question of like buy platform, especially if it's like a low, like less than I say if you're less than $150 a month, um, you'll start to see the trends of like, oh, Facebook brings in a lower average order value than LinkedIn, but maybe higher volume on Facebook, right? Like, so you can kind of see there as you start things out, you can start looking at average order value there.
In that sense, now I get what you say. To me, the most important metric, and this is pragmatic, it
Yeah.
is the ad spend, because I have seen many times that advertisers don't notice that they have their ads turned on and they overspend, and that's the worst of the pains. So to me, ad spend is the most important pragmatic metric I will see as a marketer, because that's the first way to get fired if you get it wrong. So
Yeah. I think controlling costs, I have this saying that like the easiest way to win is to suck less. So like if you can like turn off like your like the things that are doing the worst, like you are now doing better.
uh, that's right. And the final thing I will say around this is, we don't have as much control as people think. You think that you can actually change conversion rates, and sometimes it is very hard. Or when someone asks you what is a good conversion rate, that's that's mostly a useless question. uh, Figuring out what you can actually fix today or influence today is a hard task. Today at Porter, for instance, and I will share my screen, we can only influence in the short term that we are indexing pages on Google. But that those pages bring traffic, that's sometimes outside our control. And that those pages bring revenue, that's vastly outside our control. So Identifying what you can control is, to me, the most important task when it comes to create a dashboard. And I will actually show our dashboard here. I will share it with you guys so I can show you what I see today. This is not a template that I am sharing. No, this is my SEO dashboard that I use. And you will see I have, this is SEO. So I can see, hey, I am bringing more traffic. That's the only question I have. If we have more traffic. And if not, I want to see why. Here, I break down our data by topic. And you can see that our most important topic is dropping in traffic. This is the kind of scenarios where things are frustrating because even though you see this is dropping, you are on something else and you are focusing on something else. So suffering on things that you cannot control is very nasty. But once you are in the game, you notice eventually, hey, um, hey, I will focus on the things I can control and I will only visualize the data of the things I can control today. Otherwise, this analysis is useless in the short term. But yeah, in general, that's what I wanted to share.
Yeah, no, I think it's one thing that like is always interesting, right? Is that like um your change of direction can only be influenced if you're moving. Like if you're not moving anywhere, you can't change that direction. And so like I think with like startups in general, and others like and anyone who's like has a small business, right? Like if you're not moving in a direction, if you don't have traffic, if you don't have these things, like it becomes very difficult to do anything. But like I would argue, Juan, on your side of things, is that like if you have enough traffic, right? If you have these things, you could change the site design to generate more leads because you have traffic coming from SEO. Uh, you could change the offer of like saying, hey, instead of creating a free account or whatever else, we'll do it for you for X amount of dollars. Like we're now like a little mini agency, right? But like if you don't have anything, you don't have like the like traffic or you don't have a direction, it's very hard to change that direction. And I think it's Despicable Me, the movie. I'm gonna quote a Despicable Me movie right now. It's like the villain is Vector. You need a direction and velocity. So you need like where are you going and how fast are you going, and that equals a vector. Like that's what the pun is that if you don't have a vector, you don't have anything you can change.
That's great. Final take on that on my end on these marketing dashboards. If you ask me for the single most important metric is marketing is demand. And demand is how you can calculate that demand. For you is traffic or sign-ups or leads. But if you can measure your demand and that your demand is increasing, then your marketing is working. Everything else is business. I mean, the product is the business, is not marketing aspects, but whatever that represents demands is your marketing dashboard. So to me, that's one the most important metric I will look at.
Yeah, and I think one other thing is like is the closer your expectation is to the outcome, the better you're doing. And so if I can say, hey, like I think what we're going to do is we're going to generate 100 free trials next month, and then you hit 100 free trials, like you're doing good. You have a pretty good idea on that pulse. The problem lies if you have say we're going to generate 100 free trials next month and you generate 1,000 and you don't know why. That's almost just as bad as generating 50.
Okay, it is not as bad because you're generating results. But that's great. Someone had a question, and I think we can close with this one.
Yeah.
Charity, that is my issue. Right now, we have tried 4 different types of campaigns and not seeing the success we need. So no, now I need to make combined reports of everything we tried, not looking forward to it. How do you interpret that question, and how will you answer it?
Yeah, I would say like
Yeah.
when you define, I say like we need a definition of campaign. Like, is that like a new thing or is that like an ad, right? Like, I think some people like say campaign like in Facebook. Like you've run 4 different campaigns. Um, so I might maybe ask on that, but like I would start at the highest level of saying how many people saw the thing, how many people engaged with the thing, and then how many people did the thing you were trying to do, and see where you lost like people on that. Of like, was it that the campaign didn't deliver enough impressions? Was it the people that saw it did not get a visceral reaction to act on it? And it could be something that you're not like something that's not sexy. Like I think that's also something that's like you always have to consider. Like for example, we run an education platform called the Lab, right? It's the least sexy thing. Like this is by far the least sexy area. And I think Juan will agree. Like it's like we are dealing with like the numbers and like the like we're not saying we'll make you more money, we're saying we'll give you more visibility, which is like only sexy if you're an optometrist who gives glasses to people who can't see. Like, but in business, it's not it's not a great thing. So like we can't really run ads. It's very difficult. Because it's not something that people are excited to take an action on, but they need it. He likes vegetables.
Great. If I don't know if the question is this is if charity doesn't know why those campaigns don't work, or maybe the challenge is the reporting.
Yeah.
Uh,
I don't. Yeah. I don't know.
but anyways, in my case, when I don't know why something is not working, generally the answer is never in the numbers, but in the qualitative part. In the why. In my case, this is what happens. Most of the answers, 90% of the answers, is or talking to users or not knowing the why, which is never in the number or in the dashboard. That depends on the case, of course. But JJ, I really appreciate this space. You have any other comment to close this thing? I really appreciate this space always. Your thoughts, and looking forward for the next meeting eventually.
Yeah. Excited as well. Yeah. Thank you guys, everyone who joined us. It's been a blast, and hopefully it was a good hour well spent. Thank you guys for having me.
And thank you very much, and thank you everyone for being in this call. Really, really appreciate it.